Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to get started with our public hearing. We are here to receive testimony on spending affordability guidelines for the FY21 capital budget and the FY21 to 26 capital improvements program. These guidelines are to be based on how much additional debt the county can afford, given certain financial and economic factors that are specified in Chapter 20 of the County Code. The guidelines specify the maximum level of debt that should be approved. The guidelines for the aggregate capital budget may not exceed unless approved by 7 council members. After considering the public hearing, testimony, and other relevant matters, the council may adopt guidelines that differ from the proposed guidelines. A GO committee work session is tentatively scheduled for Thursday, September 26. Persons wishing to submit additional material for the council's consideration should do so before the close of business on September 23rd, so that your views can be included in the material which staff will prepare for the committee's consideration. And today we have 4 speakers, Ms. Mary Beck, Casey Anderson, Gordy Bren, and Jane Lyons. Please come forward. And as a reminder, there is the button at the base of the microphone. So please turn that on when you're speaking and then turn it off after you're finished. So we'll start with Ms. Mary Beck with the County Executive.
Good afternoon. I'm Mary Beck, the OMB Capital Budget Manager, and I'm here to testify on behalf of County Executive Mark Elrich regarding his FY21 to 26 spending affordability guideline recommendations. The executive recommends that the council adopt the following spending affordability guidelines for GO bonds: $320 million in FY21, $310 million in 22, and $290 million in each year for FY23 to 26, for a 6-year total of $1.79 billion. This maintains the currently approved FY to 21 to 24 funding assumptions and keeps 25 and 26 flat at those same levels. And the executive feels these limits are appropriately needed to balance the needs of capital and operating budgets. The executive does not support increasing GO debt beyond the previously approved levels due to a desire to maintain greater operating budget flexibility so we can avoid crowding out other vital services during periods of economic downturn, and so that we can make investments in joint council and executive priorities such as affordable housing, early care programs, education, and economic development. By balancing these current and future needs, we'll also be able to maintain a AAA bond rating, which helps save the taxpayers money. The executive or the county already faces significant levels of mandated spending. In FY20, 65% of general fund revenues went for schools, college, and tax-supported debt service. Future mandatory budget pressures are likely to grow, with school enrollment increases and debt service growing by almost 15% from FY20 to 26. Increasing the bond limits could jeopardize our ability to actually pay to operate the facilities that we build in the CIP. The potential for debt service crowding out these other worthy services is very real. Debt service is currently the second largest budget, second only to MCPS. It's not surprising, since debt service has grown much faster than other programmatic areas, increasing from $225 million in 09 to $485 million by 26. CABS meeting attendees expressed great concern when they saw these debt service trends. For Parkin planning bonds, the executive recommends $6.6 million annually, 21 to 23, and $6.7 million annually, 24 to 26, for a total of 39.9. That's basically maintaining at currently approved levels with a slight increase over the 6-year period. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Beck. Mr. Casey Anderson.
Thank you. The Parkin Planning Commission would ask you to approve an increase in our SAG limit to $8 million, up from about 6.6 as currently programmed. That will allow us to maintain the assets in local parks. We are no longer in the business of proposing large $5 or $10 million major renovations of local parks. The only major park renovation that we have on a whole-scale basis in our local parks that's ongoing is Hillendale, which many of you will remember last time we really struggled to make sure that we could actually get that done and deliver on what had been promised to the community in that part of the county. Going forward, we're trying to avoid those kind of difficult discussions by making only very modest refreshments, sort of like the library refresher program that the county has undertaken successfully. But if we're even going to make those kind of minor improvements and maintain the existing assets that we have, the existing infrastructure, for example, playgrounds, where we're currently replacing playground equipment on an average of something like once every 36 years. That's really too long to keep those playgrounds going. If your children and your children's children are playing the same playground equipment that you are, that starts to become a problem. We need this additional accommodation on the SAG limit in order to maintain that kind of basic infrastructure and keep these parks in good shape at a level that I think all of your constituents expect and that we expect from ourselves as a park department. And we really can't do that unless we get at least a small bump up in our SAG limit. So I'd be happy to discuss with each of you individually some of the parks that are in the queue for refreshers or some of these basic maintenance type capital projects. But I wanted to get in front of that as quickly as possible so you're aware that we really do have a pressing need. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gordy Brennan.
Gordy Brennan with the Taxpayers League. The capital budget spending affordability guidelines need to be updated to reflect the weakened position of the county's balance sheet by establishing new prioritization methods. It's not enough to put a ceiling on spending, but how we select projects that we spend on is very important. A decade of projects approved with little regard to how they would either reduce operating costs or increase revenues has pushed us to the 10% ceiling on debt service with little to show for it. As a result, spending on school buildings, transportation, and other worthy projects must be deferred, and our balance sheet is stuffed with overvalued assets that future generations will have to pay for. Charter Section 302 says that projects shall include an estimate of the impact of the program on county revenues and the operating budget. What percentage of the projects in your capital book include this? Only a few. The focus seems to be on project costs only. The spending affordability guidelines are no more than ceilings on spending that will hold debt to agreed upon limits, but we need to figure out how we prioritize projects. Take, for example, the Wheaton Library, the new one. I haven't looked at the numbers, but hypothetically, this library could be a winner. It could pay for itself. It could have returns that are greater than the cost of capital. That library has facilities that can be rented out, conference facilities. That's revenue. More importantly, it replaces an old building that probably had high operating costs, and the differential between more efficient HVAC, et cetera, could well result in a net payback on the project greater than the cost of capital, but that wasn't considered when it was approved. Return on investment analysis is a method most organizations use to allocate scarce capital to assure that the cost of capital is covered, and it should be the centerpiece of additions to the new spending affordability process. You recently approved a bill to establish an economic impact justification for projects, and ROI is a technique for objectively doing that. There are many that will point out that estimating economic benefits is hard to do. And many government units don't do this, but many government units aren't in the position we're in. Even WSSC has made this argument, and look at the pickle they're in. They have to defer spending on pipe replacement and valve replacement and consent decrees. Emergency projects for public health and safety may be exempt under current regulations from economic justification, but estimating the number of adverse health episodes, injuries, or deaths is a worthy public exercise in disclosure and adds rigor to the analysis. Perhaps the most valuable contribution is that it makes us think about alternatives. Too often we go into project analysis without thinking about alternatives, one of which is doing nothing. And there are also leasing versus buy options. And I just would finish by suggesting that there needs to be much more rigor in this analysis. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bernie. Jane Lyons?
Good afternoon, President Navarro and council members. Thanks for the opportunity to speak today. I'm here on behalf of the Coalition for Smarter Growth, and we support a capital improvements program that prioritizes investments in transit, bicycles, and pedestrian improvement projects. Transit, including bike and pedestrian infrastructure, is essential for the county's economic competitiveness, for fighting climate change, providing affordable access to jobs, and improving the safety and health of county residents. We urge the County Council and the county executives to support the investments that are necessary for successful transit-oriented communities, local street grids, improved access to metro stations, and a low-stress biking and walking network. Specifically, we call on the FY 21-26 CIP to fund first bus rapid transit projects. The county must continue with the implementation and engineering of BRT on 29, 355, and Veers Mill Road. Funding should also be advanced for the next highest priority BRT projects on New Hampshire Avenue and the North Bethesda Transitway, which currently would not finish the planning stage until FY 24 and 25 respectively. These projects need to be put on a fast track if Montgomery County is to meet its economic development and especially its greenhouse gas emissions reduction goals. Second, ride-on improvement. Ride-on is one of the county's most valuable resources and requires funding for bus stop improvements and replacements to ensure that service is frequent, reliable, and accessible. Next, new metro entrances. Second metro entrances for Bethesda, Forest Glen, and White Flint are essential to support economic development, to shorten walking distances, and to increase metro ridership. Local support for these projects is vital because WMATA resources may be fully committed to its significant capital replacement needs. And even if WMATA finds funding in its capital budget, it's likely that it will require significant local matches. And finally, bicycle pedestrian priority area improvements and other bicycle and pedestrian projects. These improvements are necessary for implementing the county's Vision Zero plan. In 2019 alone, more than 300 people have been injured or killed on Montgomery County roads due to inadequate pedestrian and bicycle infrastructure. Many of those injuries and deaths were preventable, and preventing those future deaths on Montgomery County roads through road diets, protected bike lanes, improved sidewalks, and safer crossings should be the highest priority. These capital improvements should be made as quickly as possible and funded in the fully requested amounts. Many of these projects were cut in last year's amended CIP and are at risk to be cut again. A robust, safe, multimodal transit network is really the key to a more accessible, sustainable, and equitable Montgomery County. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. I don't see any lights, so this public hearing is closed. Thank you for coming over and sharing your views. Okay, now we're going to move on to item number 10, and this is an interview of County Executive's appointee director for Montgomery County Public Libraries, Miss Anita Vassallo. Mr. Klein.
Good afternoon, Councilmember Navarro, members of the council. I'm Andrew Klein, the Chief Administrative Officer. I am pleased to introduce to you Anita Vassallo as the County Executive's nominee for Director of the Montgomery County Public Libraries. Anita has devoted 45 years to the Montgomery County Public Libraries. She started as a clerk and has been acting director for the last 2 years. She understands the evolving mission of libraries, including the role of technology in keeping libraries accessible and relevant. She's a collaborative leader who cares about the well-being and development of her staff. She has embraced turn-the-curve thinking to increase the use of library resources and run the back office functions of the library more efficiently. So again, it is with pleasure that I introduce her to you for interview and confirmation.
Thank you. So, well, first, I do want to acknowledge not only your extraordinary service, but also your leadership and your acting capacity. We all know how important libraries are to Montgomery County. This morning I shared that my first volunteer service in the county was as a member of the Committee on Hate Violence, and my second one was as a volunteer on the Library Advisory Board when Rockville Library was just across the way, and it had the children's library section for the whole county. And so I was able there to really explore many important issues, including diversifying the collection of Spanish language books, and traveled to the Reforma conference in Tucson way back when my youngest was 6 months old. And it's extraordinary to see what has happened to our library system and how it has responded to the needs of our community. So I want to thank you for your service and also your leadership as an acting director. And before we hear from you, because I do have some questions, I'm going to turn it over to our lead for libraries, Councilmember Jawanda.
Thank you, Council President, and Ms. Vassallo, it's great to see you here officially and not in a 6-month extension. So kudos to Mr. Klein and to Mr. Elrich. We're glad to have you here. I also want to commend your work. 45 years of service in any entity is something that's very laudable, but in our public libraries, and you've started from the beginning and worked your way entirely up. You've seen every part of the library. You've seen it grow and change, and so we're really going to continue to benefit from that knowledge. Madam President, do you want me to ask a question or allow, or
No, I think we're going to get started first with our basic questions.
Okay, so
I saw your light. I didn't realize
yeah,
you were
no,
just trying to get
I
up
was
in
just
there.
getting first in the queue, but thank you for the opportunity, and I do have some questions, comments, but I'll wait till
All right.
after the Council President.
Sounds great. Okay, Ms. Vassallo, we have a few questions, and then we'll engage in a dialogue with you. So the first question actually has 3 parts, as you've probably seen it. So just today, the council, we introduced, of course, a bill to establish a racial equity and social justice policy in the county. I was interested in knowing what specific experience do you have implementing and overseeing workforce and programming through a racial and social justice lens. As an example, recruiting employees who reflect the county's diverse communities, included and not limited to diverse language and cultural competencies, different ages, generational perspectives, and those with physical or other disabilities.
So first of all, I would like to thank Council President Navarro and all of the council members for giving me the opportunity to interview for the position of Director of Montgomery County Public Libraries. As was mentioned, I have worked for libraries for 45 years, which is a very long time, and have seen nearly all of the jobs that are included in the library's portfolio. So in order to address your first question, I would say that I am personally very conscious of the need for equity. It's something that we discuss quite often in the library administrative offices. We train for equity with all of our staff, and we make sure that staff is aware of it. Under my direction, MCPL signed on to the Urban Libraries Council statement on race and social equity in August of 2018. And I would just want to briefly read a few lines from that statement. Our library systems are working to achieve equity in the communities we serve by eliminating racial and social equity barriers in library programs, services, policies, and practices, creating and maintaining an environment of diversity, inclusion, and respect in both our library systems and in all aspects of our community role, ensuring that we are reaching and engaging disenfranchised people in the community and helping them express their voice, serving as a convener and facilitator of conversations and partnerships to address community challenges, and being forthright on tough issues that are important to our communities. Libraries are trusted, venerable, and enduring institutions central to their communities and an essential participant in the movement for racial and social equity. This statement is posted in each of my branches in staff rooms. It's on my bulletin board. It's posted on our website. And this is what we use to guide our thinking going forward in terms of making sure that we are providing equity and we are looking through that lens in everything that we do. I was a member of Reforma also, which, as President Navarro mentioned, is a national association to promote library services to Latinos and Spanish-speaking. I am actually Mexican-American. My grandfather came here from Mexico in the early part of the 20th century and made a life for his family here. So early in my career, I was focused on expanding collection services to the Spanish-speaking, which was pretty non-existent in the 70s and the early 80s. We're doing much better now. As the assistant manager at the Germantown Library for 13 years, from the construction of the library until I left to take a position as the manager of the Davis Library, I helped to assess and direct the adjustment of the collection and the programs to the changing demographics of our service area, particularly focusing on increasing the amount of material with an African American focus and interest to that community, and making myself aware of the interests of particularly the young people. I'll tell you a funny story. A young woman came in when I was on the desk one afternoon and asked me if I had any books about drama. I said, okay, yeah, books. You mean books about the theater, history of the theater? And she said, no, I mean books about drama. I said, oh, you mean books that we call urban literature. You mean stories about people and what's going on in their neighborhoods. She's like, yeah, that's what I want. So I made it my business after that point to read everything that we received in urban literature so that I could do some great readers advisory for young folks who came in looking for that kind of literature. At the Davis Library, I worked with the director of the Betty Carroll Thompson Scotland Recreation Center, which serves the traditionally African American community off of Seven Locks Road in North Bethesda, to provide programs such as story times and also training for the young parents there on early literacy behaviors so that they could get their little ones ready for kindergarten along with the rest of that North Bethesda community. Long ago, I made a point to provide international film programs at the Gaithersburg Library, subtitled for the various residents of the community who might want to see themselves reflected in the programs that were being offered by the library. I also briefly managed our outreach staff, which is a team of 4 now that goes out into the community, speaking in a wide variety of areas. That team is composed of 2 Latina, 1 African American, and 1 white staff member. They reach out to everyone throughout the community, and if you've been at a community event, you've probably seen one of our outreach staff members. I am also conscious of the needs of our rural community. I'm working with the manager of the Maggie Nightingale Library in Poolesville to adjust the hours to better serve that community, and we are looking for ways to reach out to the underserved Hispanic workers who work on the farms, the horse stables, and the other workforce opportunities that are out there. These are folks whose English is not the greatest. They are often in an area where they're really not seen and they're underserved, but they're there and they are our residents and they need service. We've done a lot of training this year for all of our staff related to working with individuals experiencing homelessness and the mentally ill. Another thing that I have done this year is instructed staff when we write up our incident reports that race should not be included in these reports unless it is a vitally important piece of information for the report. There is no need to say that a group of 5 African American teenagers did something when the fact that those teenagers are African American has absolutely no bearing on what teenage boys can get up to. It can be anybody. So we're not doing that. We're not tracking that. In terms of recruiting employees who reflect our community, we are reaching out to specific interest groups in libraries, such as, again, Reforma, the Black Caucus of ALA, historically black colleges and universities that have library programs. We're sending our job ads out to those areas. We do know that, I think if you've walked into our libraries, you've seen that our staff is very diverse. We draw from many of the communities across the county, but we know that in our professional ranks, we can do better. Many of our diverse employees work in what we would consider our clerical situations, still extremely important. Many residents only interact with the people who help them check the books in and out, but we can do better. We can offer more in the way of training for those individuals so they can move up. And as I said, we are actively talking about ways that we can solicit a more diverse pool for our applicants. When we interview, we make sure that people who are on our interview panels are diverse in terms of race, gender, abilities. We reach outside of Montgomery County for additional folks. We have a good partnership with other local library systems that neighbor us. We have a great librarian who comes in from Carroll County. She is disabled and in a wheelchair, but she comes in and does interviews for us so that we can have that reflected in our interview panels. We will be instituting a Spanish language capacity as a preferred criteria in our job applications, not a required criteria, but preferred, because we know that throughout the county that is a need that we have at many of our branches. Libraries is also a very active partner with the program Project Search, which I think most of you are familiar with. We have worked with the county ADA office to place adults with disabilities in appropriate positions with our branches. So one of my main concerns is that my workforce reflects the community so that people are comfortable when they come into the library, speaking to library staff behind the desk. How do I manage and cultivate the materials available within the library system to meet the diverse needs of our residents? Our branch managers monitor the demographics of the service areas to be sure that collection and programming meets the changing demographic of their community. We consider a service area for our down-county libraries to be a 3-mile radius and for our up-county libraries to be a 5-mile radius. We do have a cadre of selectors who work to choose the materials for the library system. They are charged with being mindful of the diversity of our community. They are trained in ways to select diverse materials that reflect our residents, and they are charged with making sure that our collection reflects the community and meets interests and needs. The selectors also get input from local branch staff, as well as monitoring trends in publishing and in library work. The libraries all have a local library advisory committee. This is a group of generally 4 to 10 people drawn from the local community who advise the branch manager on issues such as collection, facility, programming, staffing, and they report to our library board, which is a group of 12 individuals appointed by the county executive to advise the library on issues of interest to the community. In assessing our spending for materials and our movement of funds from print materials to supporting the increasing demand for e-materials, we are mindful of the ability of our residents to access or own these devices and whether they have internet access at home. 81% of U.S. residents have smartphones. 71% of residents with incomes under $30,000 have smartphones. And 80% of African American residents have smartphones. So what we look at when we choose these resources is, are they mobile responsive? Mm-hmm. Will they work on a smartphone as well as on a tablet or a desktop computer? We do provide internet wireless access 24/7 from all of our facilities instead of turning it off when the library closes, as is done in some other library systems. So that's available to our community, perhaps not in our building, but near our building or outside our buildings, and we know that people use it. So that's my answer to the first question.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Second question also has 3 parts. The Atlantic published an article earlier this year that detailed how libraries are, quote, second responders, end quote, by providing safe spaces for residents beyond the traditional role of material lending. In what ways have you seen the county's library system evolve in recent years, and how can the council partner with you to enhance the role of libraries as community hubs. Do you believe that our current hours accommodate these needs?
Thank you. I, of course, read the Atlantic article when it first came out, as I monitor all things library-related. So, yes, I have certainly seen the library system evolve in recent years, and then, of course, over the course of my career. If libraries didn't evolve to meet the needs of our community, we would find ourselves in a very dire situation. And I have another little thing to read to you that relates to this that I just received today. To the Davis Library staff, hello. I am a library goer who is heading off to college after 5 years of enjoying this library's facilities. So I wanted to leave a note of appreciation. This space has served as a second office for remote internships and homework when home was too distracting or isolating. It was always a great feeling to make progress, step outside, and see the student athletes playing hard across the street or the sunset as the evening closed. And of course, it was always pleasant to spend lazy afternoons simply indulging on some great writing. Point being, Davis Library is someplace wonderful, so thank you. And this was sent today with a little caricature of the writer. So, you know, that just points up what libraries are to people in the community now. It's not just a place to go to check out some books and take them home and use them. As we've moved from physical materials to electronic materials, which people can access from home, never needing to set foot in the library to obtain those types of things, we have seen our spaces change and evolve to become a place to be for so many of our residents, even if they, from a senior citizen who's isolated at home, they come to the library 2 or 3 times a week to read the New York Times that they can't afford anymore on their limited income, but also just to talk with the staff. And my staff is wonderful at that. How are you doing? They know their kids, they know their dog, they know what's been going on. And if we don't see somebody for a while, we know there's something wrong. And if we can reach out to have somebody checked on, we do so. We are also working, of course, in libraries all the time to address the digital divide. Internet access has a cost for people. And if you are on a limited income and you're trying to get your kids backpacks for kindergarten, you might not be able to afford that money that you pay to Comcast, I guess it is here, every month. So you can come into the library, you can be assured of availability, kids can come in, do what they need to do, because a lot of the children now, when homework comes, it's not something to be done with paper and pencil. It's something that you have to have the ability to access the internet for. So libraries is offering that out. So we have that critical provision of the public computers, the free wireless, the ability to print, the ability to scan a document. We also provide on our public computers the software that people need in order to be able to do these things. We have the full Microsoft Office suite. We have a suite of open source software that we didn't have to pay anything for that enables kids to come in and do 3D design, GIMP, which will allow you to do artwork, photo editing. So that's all there. And as I said, you know, the library just is a place to be, a place to study, a place to get away from a situation that might be difficult at home. Plenty of kids find the library a refuge where they can come. And of course, when I was at Germantown, we did see, because of the housing that was built around the library, many kids who were locked out of their residence when school let out. Their parents didn't want them to have access to home when there was nobody there. So they come to the library. And everyone is welcome. Everyone is welcome. I think we're probably the only thing really in the county where we don't care if you buy anything, we don't care if you have signed up to join us, but you can come in, you can be there, you can use what we have, and we're happy to have you there. What else did I want to say about that? Libraries are also a place to learn, not just by yourself through a book, but formally we offer a lot of classes in partnership with various organizations throughout the county, whether they're the workforce development programs. Again, I got an email yesterday from somebody. It was really short. It just said, a friend of mine told me that the library can help me do my resume. I really need help with my resume. How can you help me? That kind of thing. So informally with library staff who will help you figure out how to format your resume, or they'll figure out how to get an email address. A lot of residents of our county, for whatever reason, they left, school early, they didn't graduate. We have a program which will allow people to get a scholarship to work through something called Career Online High School. At the end of the program, if they work through it, they'll receive a high school diploma, not a GED, an actual high school diploma. We support that program. But also, you may have dropped out of school in the 9th grade. Now you have to support your baby. So you want a job, and where are you going to get a job? Walmart, Home Depot, Target. You have to apply online. You have to have an email address. You don't know how to do this. You don't have these things. Where do you get an email address? Do you go to the post office to get one? You come to the library, you say, I need an email address. I don't know what to do. We help you. We help you with that online job application. We explain to you how it's going to work, how you need to go in and check your email. I don't really know of another place in the county that's offering that same kind of service, but we are. So how can you all help us? This is my ask. When you are out in the community, listen to what the residents are saying about library and library services. Come and visit us. Stop by the libraries. Find out what we're doing. Let your constituency know what we have, what's available for them. When you go out and you visit other cities or you visit other jurisdictions, if you have the time, visit their library. If you see a wonderful thing in another library, let us know, because the wonderful things are what we want to provide for the residents of Montgomery County. Do I believe that our current hours accommodate these needs? I would love to see library hours expanded when the budget allows. We are considering some innovative ways to perhaps extend the availability of resources to our residents. Certainly there is a demand for it. We do offer the extended hours on Friday and Saturday nights during the summer. The day that we stop those, the emails begin to come in begging us to extend the hours at all the libraries until 9 o'clock. Certainly there is a need. We do what we can.
Thank you. So we just opened the new Wheaton Library Recreation
we
Center
did.
facility. What do you think of this approach of combining facilities? And also, what do you think of the refresh approach to address facility issues?
I think combining recreation and libraries in the county is a wonderful, fantastic idea. I know that most of you were there on opening day. It was crazy.
Amazing.
It was amazing. It was wonderful. I talked to so many people who were so grateful to have this facility in their neighborhood. And they have been just swamped, so busy. What's been really interesting is so many new library cards. People who've never had library cards before. A lot of families coming in. The children's materials just flew off the shelf, as did the teen materials. So I think that having the draw of the recreation center along with the library is definitely benefiting both of these departments of county government. It's a fantastic idea to combine the services there. I mean, you can just, it's a no-brainer, really. So it's worked out very well for both of us, and it's a beautiful building, and we're just very pleased and very happy and grateful for the funding for it, and that it turned out so well. It has its little issues, I won't deny, but we're working on those. The refresh process is really working very well for us. We have 21 buildings that are open to the public in the county, some of them built in the 50s, and they all needed attention. It is not possible for us to do the kind of tear down and rebuild that was done for Wheaton for all of these 21 facilities. The refresh process that started in 2015 has given us the ability to take the buildings, to give them a new look, to change the interior layout if needed to make them more efficient. We have upgraded technology. When people come to the library now, they want to be able to plug their device in. If you're in a building that was built in 1955, you're not going to find very many plugs sitting around the library. So all of the things that we've been able to do on, not an unreasonable budget, but certainly a limited amount of money, I think when we've given these buildings back to the community, they've been extremely pleased with the changes that they have seen. The process has adapted over the past 4 years. We're being more careful, more intentional when we go into these older buildings to open them up so that we don't get the kind of surprises that we had at some of them where we found asbestos in the floor, mold in the walls, plumbing that wasn't connected, electrical wiring that was nothing more than wires laid across the ceiling grid, lots of surprises. So now we embark upon these projects with a 4 to 6 month assessment phase where the Department of General Services looks at the building very carefully to see what it's going to need, another 4 to 6 month planning phase so that we can stage the work correctly. Then we go into construction so that we don't run into problems. But for example, the Praisner Library in Burtonsville will probably be reopening sometime in the fall, I will say, sooner rather than later. And that project has gone very smoothly, I think, because we changed the program a little bit, and it's been great.
Great. I know the Aspen Hill Library and then the White Oak Library, folks were really grateful ones that opened because they needed that TLC, and
Right.
that was
And
a great project
it
to work on as well. And I only also just share that with the Wheaton Library and Recreation Center opening, I had a very interesting moment where I left and then I gave somebody a ride and I was coming back on Georgia, and I had this moment where, you see the renderings, right? And you see people walking and with the little kids, and the renderings, they're just drawings. But as I was driving, it was like the drawing just came alive.
Came to life.
You see all these different people really excited with their books and the little kids and all of that, and kids playing in the green space. It was just such an amazing thing because obviously, this whole conversation about equity, that for me brought it home. That this top-notch, state-of-the-art, beautiful facility with these wonderful interior spaces now can be enjoyed by everyone in that community. It sends a message, right? And it also sends a message for folks who are considering that area of the county to call home, that maybe I will buy a home there. Look at this facility. I mean, it just has so many benefits that it was just an extraordinary moment for everybody. All right, so last question. Are there any conflicts of interest of which we should be aware?
No.
Okay, Ms. Vassallo, thank you. All right, Councilmember Jawando.
Thank you, Council President. We'll try this again. Ms. Vassallo, thank you for for your service. Just a couple questions. But Wheaton, just to pick up on that before I ask you a question, I was there the first day with my children, and I came back the next week. And to your point, my oldest daughter, is a big graphic novel.
Right.
And there was like nothing there.
Yeah.
I mean, and so to your point of the teen section as well, I walked by there. I think it's just a testament to something that I've always believed and really believe now, having started our library tour and talked to so many more people. Our libraries are underutilized in certain communities. They're utilized, but we have only scratched the surface of the capacity. And I think the co-location is bearing that out, to your point. I think we might have to, certain areas, more densely populated, we have to look at restocking and reordering, because I think you're going to see that trend continue with the great works, particularly at a place like Wheaton, where you have people, to your point, of getting a library card for the first time. And I think that's going to be more and more. So it's really exciting. I think it gives us a new challenge and opportunity to look at what's the growth opportunity, and certainly as we're making budgetary decisions, I think we're going to have to factor all that in. I did want to ask a couple of questions. So following up on question 2 about second responders and how our libraries are community hubs, and I know we've talked about this, you and I, what is the future of libraries in Montgomery County and in the country? And I often remark, you're on the front lines of service, and you mentioned this in your remarks, to so many different types of people in the county that are seeking everything from just the traditional checking out resources or a book or a video, or someone trying to get a job, someone accessing government services, someone looking for story time for their children. So we have the whole gamut of human existence, from literally from birth to end of life, that can find something for them in the library. And so I wonder your thoughts on how we might enhance, combining what I first said about, I think there's a lot of people that could be benefiting from all these things. And my sense is that you have some people that really have it figured out. They know we have 3D printers. They know we have all this great stuff. And then you have a lot of people that have no clue. So talk to me a little bit about your thoughts about how we move forward with those things and give you what you need to do that.
So, that's something that we discuss a lot. I keep saying that it seems like we're still hand selling. If I talk to somebody or one of my staff speaks to someone about what the library has to offer, they're just blown away. So we are looking towards kind of adjusting some of our administrative positions in order to facilitate our communication, our marketing, if you will, out to the community so that we can be sure that people are aware of the types of things that are available to us. And, doing more partnerships with nonprofits and outside organizations to bring more services into the library. There is some discussion of maybe us working more robustly with HHS in some of our areas, such as Silver Spring, where there are some social work needs in the library that might be served by having a regular presence there. So as we assess how libraries are being utilized by all of the different people who come in, the conversation continues about how we can best meet those needs and also how we best get our message out to everyone who might be interested in utilizing our services. So as I said, it's working with our partners, it's working on communication, messaging, getting our message out there. We do a lot of social media. That's great if you're on social media, but a lot of the people that we want to reach aren't quite there. So, it's something that we think about and consider all the time and are trying to put a plan together to move forward with that.
Right. Well, I think many of us are excited about how to help you do that and think about that. I think about it a lot. I know we've talked about the outreach positions.
Right.
And that leads to my second and final question, because I know we have several others, including the best committee here, the Education Culture Committee chair, except for when I'm fed. Except for all the other committees. Yeah. Council President and Craig, I got to go with that right now.
Okay.
The staffing, so I have 5 stops into the 22-stop library tour, and every one, staffing comes up. And whether it's the length of time to get someone on, the number of part-time employees, you kind of alluded to this in your comments.
Yeah.
And you or Mr. Klein, I think, whether it's narrowing that gap or getting the people we need. And can you talk to me about your thoughts there and how we can support you?
So certainly the turn the curve plans for the different departments. One of the headline measures that was presented at Innovation Accelerator, what do you call it? Report out yesterday from OHR is to decrease the amount of time that it takes from job vacant to hire. And we do have positions that have been open for quite a while. I know that you and I have talked about how the process works within libraries. We actually have filled almost 35 jobs in the past 6 months, but those 35 jobs were mainly drawn from promotional opportunities within the library system. So of course, then there you go, your entry-level jobs are vacant again. So we're looking at this as a process improvement. We're trying to identify where the pain points are, where the places are that we can change the process in some way to make it more efficient. We're going to have conversations with OHR about does something really need to be done the way that it has been done? Is there a better way to do it? Are there steps that can move out? I have on my staff an HR liaison and a support person for that staff member. Can we shift more of the work to the support person so the HR liaison can be freed for more focus on hiring practices? The recruitment is a continual, issue. Are we reaching the right people? Because I don't just want people in the jobs, I want the right people. And I'm not sure that everyone who wants to work for a library understands that libraries now are not what libraries were 30 years ago. Do not come to work for us if what you think is that you are going to be reading a book or your main job is going to be to tell people, what the newest bestseller is about. That's not what it is anymore. So we try to be really clear with our people who are interested in working for us that what we are now in 2019 is a customer service organization. That's our main focus. We're all about what we're providing to the community and to our customers. And if you have training as an archivist or your interest is in special collections, you might not fit in the public library setting because that's not really what we do anymore. So it's retention, it's retention of our employees. It's getting the right people in who want to do the job that we have. And then it is decreasing the amount of time that it takes us to hire.
Thank you very much. And as Lead for Libraries, I look forward to continuing to work with you
Yeah.
on all these things. And now as you'll be officially director once all my colleagues support you, as I'm sure they will. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Rice.
Well, Ms. Vassallo, let me just say how excited I am to see us come to the culmination of a person to continue to lead our libraries after it was so aptly done by Director Parker Hamilton, who I respect tremendously. And I remember one of the things that she had said at one of her retirement celebrations is about her being able to build bridges and believing in inclusion and diversity, something that I know you feel and you talked about a little bit before that is incredibly important. And by that means everyone. That does not just mean our people of color who we know are challenged, but it also means people that are of various religions and making sure that our materials reflect all of those things where everyone can see themselves in the stories, in the literature that's there, that everybody can feel supported that's there. And one of the most important things that I think you said, that everyone can feel safe there. We unfortunately know all too well that there continues to be children who use the libraries as escape, as a refuge.
Exactly.
That do not have the best home lives and go there to escape an abusive parent or an environment in their community that is not one that is supportive of them and seeks to prey on them. These are things that also are a part of our library system and the reason why it's so important. And so I just want to make sure, I know that when I got elected, when I ran in 2010, and Council Member Navarro and I, Council President Navarro and I always talk about this because she now represents the area of Olney. I was knocking on doors in Olney. And the number one issue was not about crime. It was not about education. It was not about a myriad of the other things that were equally important in our community, but it was about the hours of the Olney Library and about the Olney Library opening back up. Mm-hmm. That was the number one issue. And that says something because it says how libraries touch on so many other parts of our community. And so, as the former lead for libraries and having a person who is equally, if not more, engaged and involved in our library system and knows how important it is, I know that you and he are going to work together. I just encourage you to be vigilant in the approach of our collections and making sure that those continue to expand. I know we're going to face difficult times. Mr. Klein is sitting next to you when it comes to financial resources. And I know that's something that we struggled with in the past under the leadership of county executive, and we've gone back and forth in terms of where we are in terms of supporting our libraries. I will tell you that this is of the utmost importance to our community. And so I would just ask that you continue with that same fervor that Director Hamilton did in terms of continuing to increase our collection. As you heard from Councilmember Duando, the need is great. Our community is growing, and it certainly is something that we know will benefit all of our community. So if you wanted to just comment on that, your thoughts about how we can grow our library system, I think that's incredibly important for people to know.
So I take my my marching orders from Parker on the materials collection. Earlier this year, because of budgetary issues, we were charged with finding the funds for a reduction and, you know, don't touch the materials. Don't touch our materials budget. And we have not touched our materials budget. Now, you know, moving forward, when we look at that $6 million that we have to spend on that, and we compare ourselves perhaps to Baltimore County that has $7.1 million to spend on their materials budget, we look at the money that's in our bucket and we think about how we can move it around to perhaps provide more. It's not for me to say what the economy is going to bring to us over the next 4, 5, or 6 fiscal years. All I can do is assure you that we will make the best use of the funds that we are allocated, primarily our primary focus to provide services to the community, including our youngest. You know, I'm the oldest of 6 kids, and if you want to get away from 5 little brothers and sisters, the library, the little teeny library in Four Corners was a place where I spent a lot of my time. So I know how important it is as a refuge, as a place to find a book to curl up in a corner with, and that I want to provide that for all of the kids. I drove into Germantown today for a meeting, and as I passed the corner of Pinnacle and Crystal Rock, you know, the 25, 30 kids of all different colors, sizes, and shapes standing on the corner there waiting for the school bus. I want to see them all in the library after school, finding something for them. We are planning to fund a position for a youth teen program specialist. This will be the first one in the library system. We have the money to do it. We have the approval to do it. We just need to move forward with that. This will be a person who will oversee programming and collection for teens and tweens in our libraries, and we'll be able to look for training, appropriate training for our staff member. We know that that is an area where we don't do a great job. It's basically, we have a lot of passionate staff members who love that age and want to work with them, but we don't have the direction that we need. So we're moving forward on that also. You're welcome.
Councilmember Albornoz.
Thank you, Madam President. Ms. Vassallo, this is exciting. I've had the opportunity to work side by side with you on a variety of issues for well over a decade now, and I've seen firsthand your dedication and commitment, and I also know the respect that you garner within our libraries department, which is such an important department, and your story is an important one for staff across all of county government, somebody who came in on the front lines and worked diligently through their way through the ranks and is now going to be the director of one of the most important departments in all of county government. So it's a testament to your dedication, but again, a powerful message for all county employees. And so I commend the county executive for his appointment. And since we're in a place of record here, I want you to tell Mr. Klein how you really feel about the snow emergency policy for Montgomery County. I'm kidding. That's an inside joke.
Okay.
I did I did want to highlight two things. One, the importance of partnerships and alliances. Parker set the tone for ensuring that there was strong collaboration with sister county agencies and nonprofit organizations.
Absolutely.
I know often you were in charge with implementing those partnerships, and so I assume you will continue those moving forward, but if you could just talk briefly about partnerships and your vision for those, that would be great.
So we do have very robust partnerships with the Gilchrist Center, with Montgomery College, with SCORE. We work with county agencies such as the Commission for Women. And then we provide services to other county or federal programs such as Head Start or in the Judy Centers. Currently, because of my status as acting director for the past 2+ years, we have a position that has been vacant, and that is our assistant director for programs and outreach. So, if the council feels that I am the appropriate person for this position and it's finalized, we will move very rapidly to fill that extremely important position. I know that Councilmember Katz and his staff wish to see us involved in the LENA program, and I certainly hope that that's something that we can do and fund. I just haven't had the capacity in my department to take that on. There are a lot, as I keep saying, there are a lot of things that we want to do. There's some things that I haven't felt I had the mandate to do in the acting position that we intend to move forward with, and certainly increasing our number of partnerships with all of the organizations that are available to us in the county and want to do good work in partnership with the library will be one of my prime focuses.
Terrific. Thank you. I look forward to voting for you and look forward to working with you as well. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Councilmember Glass.
Thank you, Madam President. Ms. Vassallo, it's good to see you here. When last I saw you at the grand opening of Wheaton, which I'm still on cloud nine trying to come down from, because it was just an incredible day.
It was.
I was walking around in the library and had so many people asking me if I could help with the computers, if I can get them library cards, if I could help check them out. And I just threw my hands up and kept finding your staff that were busy bees all over the place, doing everything they needed to do. And I hope, in one hand, I hope things have calmed down, but I hope that people are still coming in and utilizing the library at that.
They have not actually. We have drawn staff from other libraries into Wheaton to beef up the staff that's there. On the opening day, I had probably 8 to 10 managers of other libraries who gave their time to be there to do things like check people out and sign them up for library cards. So it was a great event. It was a team event, a team building event, and I'm so glad that you were able to be there.
Well, it was wonderful. I'm glad. I'm glad my current colleagues and those who came before us worked so hard to get that done. And before that, I had spent plenty of time in libraries as well in my previous capacity, working with Gandhi Brigade Youth Media and working with Parker Hamilton to expand that program to about 6 or 7 different branches throughout the county, and working with you in the last year or 2 years there. And I appreciate my colleague, Councilmember Alwin, I was asking about the collaboration between county agencies, and the last part of your response to that was that you will have a prime focus on utilizing all the opportunities out there. Let me ask you on that, aside from some of the English literacy, positive youth development, some of the other programs, what do you think the need is in the libraries for programs that we currently don't partner with or operate?
I think that we have more capacity to do something for our elementary age children and get some more programming in there. I know that Gandhi Brigade's focus originally was on teens. I believe that you have kind of skewed your programs, some of your programs down lower to those tweens. We want to be able to catch kids not before they, go astray. That's a silly thing to say, but while they're still, that age of 9 and 10 is still they're so passionate and so interested in the world and in all the world has to offer that partnerships that will be able to catch them. We currently have, working with the JCA, a program where we have discussions of a book that is a point in history. Intergenerational book discussion is what we call it. So we have seniors coming in, working with a library staff member as a facilitator, and middle school students, where they discuss a book that looks at an issue. It might be about the Holocaust, it might be about the civil rights movement, and they come at it from their two different perspectives. So increasing programs like that, just being open to the opportunities that come our way. I get emails from organizations who would like to form partnerships with us to provide a certain type of service. We evaluate it in terms of the programming and our capacity, and if we can move forward with it, we do. So also, we're looking at catching the 20 to 40-year-olds. We have a lot of people who don't choose to have children, and so they don't come to the library for story time. They might come by and say, yeah, I love the library when I was a kid, but I haven't been by in a long time. We want to do more to bring them back in to libraries. So when we talk about partnerships like that, that might be a partnership with a local brewery, a distillery, a bar. Is there a way that we can work with you so that you can let people of that age range know what we have in the library and bring them on in? We have a little marketing tool that's just been developed that maybe you'll see in a local establishment. It's a beer coaster, and on it it says, here are all these resources that we have in the library. And if you click on the URL at the bottom, it'll take you to a spot that'll tell you about the streaming services. So we have so much going on for everybody. And all we can do is continue to look for opportunities to work to provide services and attract people into the libraries.
I think there are some novel ideas that you just presented, worthy of future conversation, particularly given the liquor laws here in the county and public buildings. But
not in the library.
Well, good clarification there.
Okay.
Thank you. Before anyone else gets other ideas.
Outside the library.
Outside the library. Thank you. Last thing I'll say is, while I was at Wheaton a week and a half ago, I know in a few weeks I'll be going to the Silver Spring Library because Gandhi Brigade is officially opening their new space. Great. And happy to share some of that information with my colleagues. Very excited about the 3,000 square foot facility that they'll be building there, but that they've already opened there. But also in the Silver Spring Library, there is considerable concern regarding some of the patrons who are experiencing homelessness. Mm-hmm. And I've engaged in many conversations with the staff and with some of the community providers and residents as well. Can you share with me some of the thoughts, not only about the Silver Spring facility, but about that concern, maybe in some other places as well?
Sure. I mean, in the public library world now, the challenge of providing services to individuals who are experiencing homelessness is a huge topic. What we see in Montgomery County is nothing compared to what you would see in San Francisco, Los Angeles, or Denver. So just this past week, Mr. Klein, myself, Assistant Police Chief LaCourie, and Riumberto Rodriguez from the Silver Spring Service Center, plus some other folks, sat down to talk about the challenges that are not just for the library in the Silver Spring area, of course, but throughout the urban area down there. Libraries are open to everyone. We welcome everyone. If we don't care if you're homeless. We want you to come in. We want you to use the services that we have available there. We do have behavior guidelines that we expect everyone to abide by. And if you violate one of the behavior guidelines, it will be addressed. I don't think when you talk about people experiencing homelessness, they're not all alike. And I know that there might be a picture in the mind of other users of the library. Oh, I'm going to encounter somebody whose hair is wild, they smell bad, they're filthy dirty, they're drunk, they're in some other world. But, you know, we've done a lot of training regarding homelessness over the course of this year, and it was really brought home to all of us in the library that, you know, any one of us can be 2-3 steps away from finding yourself in the same very difficult situation. So I think in terms of what we see is, unfortunately, individuals who are facing the challenges of mental illness are really more of, you know, more of a challenge for us within the library. Library staff, with all the will in the world and all the training that we can provide, are not equipped to deal with some of what we see. So, as I mentioned, you know, working with HHS to perhaps provide more of a presence of a social worker there. As you know, and as Tom knows, we did, I'm sorry, Councilmember Hucker, we did fund a security guard who is in the Silver Spring Library 40 hours a week, 12:45 to 9:15 during the week, and then on Fridays. It has definitely helped the staff be able to address incidents before they become something that we need to call the police for. So, you know, one of my really main concerns for my staff and for my customers as they're in the library is their safety and their security. Libraries don't have the answer for this right now. It's a continuing conversation and challenge for all of us. The libraries in Denver have actually recruited formerly homeless individuals to work with them within the library to interact with people that they see in the space who may need assistance. We do have an arrangement with Bethesda Cares and with one of the other nonprofits that serve the homeless, where we can call upon them, or they stop by, or if we see someone that we think needs some assistance, we can give them a call and say, you know, we have this gentleman who's here. He's here, you know, every Tuesday and Thursday. He spends the whole day here. Mm-hmm. He might need some help. They'll come in, they'll speak with them and get them lined up with some services. So it's a little bit of a patchwork approach right now. I think that for us in the county, as county departments, we need to be working in coordination to figure out how we can take steps to help these folks who are here for whatever reason, whether they're frequent flyers from the district or they're snowbirds who come up here in the summer and they head back to Florida in the winter. They still need, you know, they need concern. They need the care and compassion of all of the staff of the county that provides all the different types of services.
Well, thank you for providing some of the context regarding this, the concerns regarding libraries in other jurisdictions, and knowing that San Francisco, Los Angeles, Denver are trying to figure things out as well. Being true to themselves, allowing all patrons to utilize their facilities while managing safety. Absolutely. And Councilmember Jawando and I have been talking during this conversation just about the homelessness libraries issue, and I think we'll be following up, trying to plug ourselves into some of these conversations. Sure. That said, I look forward to working with you, voting for you, and keep doing the good work that you've been doing for 2 years.
Thank you so much.
Councilmember Friedson.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being here, for your decades of service to our community.
Y'all are making me feel ancient.
And our county. Credentialed is what I was thinking.
Okay.
But clearly, I think a lot of people have talked about the Wheaton Library and Rec Center reopening, and seeing, I think I almost got knocked over by a stampede of people, and I think it demonstrated the interest in the community and in all of our communities for world-class facilities, public facilities broadly, but specifically libraries. And a lot of my colleagues have talked about the broader role that libraries play in our lives, and the fact that they're not just about books, but they do so much more than that, and they are really community resource centers and community gathering places, and really play such a pivotal role. And as we talk about early childhood and our aging adult population and all of the challenges that we face everywhere in between, and so I don't want to reiterate everything that's been said, but this is a critical role that you are taking on, and so I look forward to your continued work and leadership there. And it was good to be at, I know it's my colleague on his second favorite committee, but I was with Will Giwando, Councilmember Giwando, at the Potomac Library, which is my childhood library, for part of his library tour. And one of the challenges that was raised there is turnover and leadership at that particular library, which is not an exclusive issue to Potomac Library, but just hoping you could talk a little bit about how do we solve that challenge. I understand it's not exclusive to Potomac, although it has been a consistent challenge at that particular library, but how do we get out of this challenge because of all the things that we've talked about, because of the importance that libraries play, the important roles that they play in our community. The leadership at each branch plays a critical role, and having consistency in that for the community, I think, is really important. So can you speak to your thoughts on how we address that issue?
I am happy to let you know that we have made decisions for 3 managers, one for Potomac, one for Chevy Chase, and one for Aspen Hill. I hope to have them in place by mid-October, if not before, given the process that we'll need to go through in terms of making the offer and all that is entailed there. I do have libraries, believe it or not, where the manager has been in place for many, many years. Potomac found itself in a situation where they had several managers placed there who were kind of marking time before retirement. So when we recruit, what we need to do is find dynamic individuals who have a real passion for community service and a real commitment to the residents of Montgomery County. I feel that with the person who we are going to place there very shortly, we have that. This is someone who has worked for the library system kind of in the way that I have, through several different jobs, working their way up. And it's something, we really want to grow from within. We can't always do that, and that's when we search for great outside talent. I have no intention of moving anyone from any of these libraries in the next 4 or 5 years. I know how important it is to have stable management in our facilities, both in terms of making the very, very important connections with the community. Can the head librarian go out to Citizens Association meetings? Can they go out to the Chamber of Commerce? Can they go out and visit the principal? Can they speak at a PTA meeting? These are all very important connections that solidify the place of the library in the life of the community. So believe me, I do not want people to take a job with us only to turn around in 6 months and tell me they're moving on to something else. So we try to hire for the commitment to the county when we're hiring.
I appreciate that and hope that it'll be a continued focus. And I hope specifically as you look at particular branches that have had that issue, that in the interest of maintaining community trust and ensuring the services are done in a way that is sufficient for the expectations of the community, that be part of the calculation, that a particular branch like Potomac that has had this consistent issue, that be an added emphasis and focus, as you look to make hiring decisions. Of course, you can't control what those you hire choose to do, and obviously we don't want to discredit those at certain points of their career versus others, but hopefully that would be a thought process of what the expectation would be when a person goes into that role, and making that expectation clear from the outset that this is a particular branch. In that case, I'm sure I know that there are others as well where this has been an issue, and so we hope that for the sake of the community, that be part of the expectation in taking the job.
Yep.
And I'm glad you brought up Chevy Chase as well. I'm glad to hear that. I was going to ask you about that. Chevy Chase, actually, my mother's childhood library. And speaking of the conversation as part of the council president's questions about dual use and refreshes and what your thoughts are on that, I am eager to learn the results of the Chevy Chase refresh project. And I understand that's more of a DGS question than a question for you, but it's certainly related. And I think that is that library looks the same as it did when my mom was there growing up as a kid. I mean, it just really has not gotten significant investment over the time. And I also think I just wanted to hear your thoughts in general of I understand the refresh program. I think there's a lot of value to the refresh program in terms of conserving our limited taxpayer dollars. I do think there are certain points where the cost to try to keep a building afloat may not be worth it in the long term, and think about how to leverage public assets and have a dual use in very desirable, very valuable land like in Chevy Chase might be something to be considered. I don't know if that's something that you have a feeling on or a position on, but I'd be interested to hear, depending on how that comes out, what your thoughts would be.
Well, as you said, it is the Department of General Services Design, Build, and Construction that gives me their assessment on where our buildings are. If they came to us or to county administration and said, listen, it's the return on the investment for this building is not there. I will say that the community is very passionately attached to their buildings. Particularly that one in Chevy Chase. They love the way it looks. They love its kind of old, traditional library feel. They've let us know that they don't want to really see the facade changed very much. So the other consideration is, the number of libraries in the Down County area, and with that library not too far from the Bethesda Library, the Kensington Library, the Noyes Library. Do we want it to keep that kind of community feel, the traditional area feel that the community seems to want? The library in Wheaton is fantastic to look at, but it's definitely a building that fits its location. Would that same be appropriate for Chevy Chase? I don't know. I'm not sure. As I said, we're in the assessment phase for Chevy Chase, and it certainly needs its attention. And I know that the Friends of the Library group there had you out to take a tour of, peel back the cover and look at all the things that were underneath. So they haven't completed their assessment, and I think it will be a conversation after that takes place to see exactly what kind of recommendation they have for that building, what we can do for it, how we can make it more functional inside and attractive to the community in general.
I appreciate that. Look forward to meeting the two new managers. Look forward to following up on this particular project, which is really important. And I'd just be remiss if I didn't note that I was at the Connie Morella Library refresh reopening, and Cokie Roberts was the keynote speaker at that, who's a very dear friend of Connie Morella and a longtime resident and a major supporter of our library system. And just wanted to note how big of a loss that is for Bethesda, for the country, for our community, for our county, and somebody who really did understand the value of the library system, what it means to our community, and just is an absolutely tremendous loss. So I just want to take the opportunity to recognize that. So thank you.
Absolutely, it was stunning to hear that.
It really was. So in closing, I will just offer an observation, I think also mostly for Mr. Klein. It's clear that in this conversation, as we talk about libraries being community hubs, our library staff seems to be required to do things like being case managers, social workers, understand, the needs of our senior citizens, understand issues of early childhood, understand issues of workforce development. I think we may need to take a step back and figure out how we do the appropriate type of professional development so that you and your staff have, some real clear guidance about how to provide that very specialized type of support, because it is true that our libraries now have really evolved. I mean, this is the 21st century model. And I take my hat off to what they have done up until now, but I'm sitting here thinking, whoa, I mean, these are very specialized type of services. And so we may need to rethink how we are approaching that and equip our staff with as much support and professional expertise in these areas as they continue to see this shift and this growth. I think that we need to do that. And so, Ms. Vassallo, thank you so much. And we do look forward to the vote. And it is my understanding that the confirmation is tentatively scheduled for the 24th. So we all look forward to that.
Thank you so much.
All right, we're adjourned. Thank you.